I'll tell you, this caught me by surprise today. This one was surprising, even for me. Now, I'm a big believer in Trump's economic policies, but I'm also a realist, and I recognize that there are going to be some bumps and challenges along the way because they're talking about really instituting some systemic change. And whenever you do something like that, right, there's going to be winners and losers. It's another reason why I think you need to be really smart about investing. Plug for 76 Research. But this one was really good news today. So inflation came down to 2.8%. And most people thought it was going to stay up around 3, maybe even higher. So this just blew everyone away. And it's really, really, really good news. I mean, inflation taming is exactly what we want and need. The market loved this, right? So you saw the market reversing course with the S&P ending up higher. And then you saw CNN actually having to admit it, which kind of I got a little bit of a kick out of. But first, before I get to that, take a look. Ooh, am I still in the shot? There we go. This is a really fascinating graphic. It shows you where we are, 2.8%. Did you see how high it went under one Joe Biden all the way up to 9.1%? Forgive me, I think I said 9.6% yesterday. But it was a train wreck under Joe. And even though it was going down, it was cumulative. So even when we say 2.8% today, it's on the heels of last year, right? So you have to remember that as you look at all of this data points. But nonetheless, it's really good. And it's so good that CNN had to admit that it was good. So this is worth seeing.
Finally, we have some good news on the economy and really the number one issue for many Americans, the cost of living. So we just learned that consumer prices in February increased by 2.8% year over year, 0.2% month over month. Both of these figures were a step in the right direction, and both were better than expected. So this is definitely very encouraging to see, because it's going to, I think, relieve some fears that inflation was perhaps re-accelerating, because this actually breaks a streak of 4 straight months where I think you could see it on the chart all the way to the right, where the inflation rate was going in the wrong direction, right? It was going higher and higher. Finally, we're seeing it dip.
Yay! Okay, so this is good news. Thank you, Lou, for the generosity. Much appreciated. Lou Maldonado. I think I said that right. Forgive me if I didn't. Anyway, the reality here is the economy is actually, in my estimation, going to get a whole lot better. Now, does it get there overnight? I'm not so sure about that. I was very impressed with this inflation number. I got to tell you, this was better than I expected. But it's like they can't admit it. They came up with this idea the other day when the market got kind of crazy because of the tariff talk that, Trump is bad for markets. And it's all billionaires, and they're like going to pocket everything. And this is the narrative that they're going with over and over and over and over again. Like all of a sudden, MSNBC is talking about the economy and markets, and they're saying the same thing. Trump is bad for markets. He's not, by the way. He's not at all. Certainly not for my investments. Again, 76 Research. But here's the representative out of Texas, and you can see they're stuck on something here.
We're trying to talk directly to the American people about our positive vision for the future, but it's based on data. The American people can see that Donald Trump was given an economy that was on the way up. We had come from the pandemic, worked our way through that, stock market, inflation going down, stock market going up. It's completely inverted now. Stock market crumbling, consumer confidence declining. That's the Donald Trump legacy. That's what Donald Trump's economy and his tariffs, on again, off again, all of that uncertainty, the American public, they may not follow every in and out, but they know that these guys are not fighting for them. And so I appreciate the DPCC and Leader Jeffries offering an opportunity for us to get our message out in a different format.
Oh, like you guys have any economic message at all. I don't even think you understand what the economy is. You don't understand what GDP is. So for the record, S&P did close higher. And right now, S&P futures and Dow futures are up as well. So I think that's not really going to work. But here's the thing. Donald Trump's like playing a long game, right? He's playing a very long game. He's not playing for this week or this month. He's playing for the future of your children, my children, and the rest of, the rest of America. I mean, this is sort of monumental what he's trying to accomplish. He outlined this in an interview with Maria Bartiromo, my former colleague, and this is what they glommed onto because he didn't cheerlead the stock market, and they just can't let this one go.
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation.
The tremendous foundation for the future is something that could be bumpy along the way, and they're going to try and basically get him at every turn. You know, whenever the stock market ends lower, it's his fault, and you know, when the stock market ends higher, they're going to credit themselves. I don't know, but you know, let me just say, when you're listening to Whoopi Goldberg on the stock market, we got a problem.
This helped send the market into free fall yesterday, which some MAGA folks are blaming on the Biden economy.
Oh, boy.
So let me just remind you about the Biden economy, okay? The economy added 16.6 million jobs, and gross domestic product grew 12.6. They are the only administration in history to have created jobs every single month.
Yes.
They achieved...
Yes. Whoopee. That's not entirely, you know, would anyone here, I'm curious, I'll ask the question to the group here, where you would actually say the economy was under Joe Biden. Did you actually think that that was a good economy in any way, shape, or form? That was not rhetoric. They were trying to say, and all through the whole campaign, they were trying to like basically act that we were the crazy ones. They were gaslighting us all the time. Somehow it was, you know, our own insanity if that we thought for any moment in time that somehow inflation wasn't all that bad. And it's like, no, inflation is that bad. I mean, I can go back to the chart I just showed you, right? This one, okay? Inflation, when I'm off camera, but whatever. You guys know where I am. That's really a bad inflation chart because that 40-year high of 9.1%, listen, you know who that was? That was none other than one Mr. Joe Biden. So you can sit there and pretend all you want on all this stuff, but it's not happening, okay? The rest of the public is where we are. And look, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. Howard, let me just go to the Commerce Secretary because I thought he did a really good job sort of articulating just exactly what's at.
By then, however, the Dow had tumbled another 1%. Since Thursday, it has fallen more than 2.5%.
The markets are going to learn. Let the deal maker make his deals.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick brokered today's truce with the Ontario Premier.
What is really being accomplished with all of these 1 or 2 day tariffs that end up getting yanked?
Well, when you're negotiating with someone and they're not paying attention and they're disagreeing, the president, who's the best deal maker ever to sit in that chair, is going to say, here's my response. And then all of a sudden, shockingly, they respond.
And yet the prospect of an aggressive trade war has prompted both J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs to bump up the risk of a recession this year.
Will these policies be worth it if they lead to a recession, even a short-term recession?
These policies are the most important thing America has ever had.
So it is worth it.
It is worth it. I don't think the only reason there could possibly be a recession is because of the Biden nonsense that we had to live with. These policies produce revenues.
So you're saying when it looks chaotic and unpredictable from the outside, that there actually is a master plan when it comes to these tariffs?
It is not chaotic. And the only one who thinks it's chaotic is someone who's being silly. He said reciprocal tariffs.
Nobody expected him to announce 50% tariffs this morning.
He needed to break some guy in Ontario who said he was going to tax American energy 25%. The president of the United States in the White House says, oh, no, you won't, and breaks him. And you think that's chaotic?
And they, well, you know, look, you have to be willing to break a little glass along the way, right? And that's what's going on. And let's hope it goes on. Because listen, I think there's some great stuff ahead. I really do for our economy. I'm excited about it. I think that much can happen. But you know what? I'm just going to say this. Congress has to get its act together, right? We need to be a united front. We need Republicans doing the right thing. The reality is Bidenomics took us way, 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 way back, despite what Whoopi Goldberg says. And there's some tricky stuff coming up. I'm just going to point this one out because it's reality. These tax cuts that we got, the Trump tax cuts, they're due to expire. So that would actually mean that families would be paying $1,500 more in taxes next year. And this is why I'm excited by some of the work that AFP, Americans for Prosperity, is doing on this, because right now they're just saying, hey, listen, we've got to actually be realists here. We've got to have our act together because we don't want Bidenomics taking us back. If we don't get these tax cuts through, then we're still going to have to deal with all these rising costs and the reality of inflation. And as much as Trump is trying to change all this, it's not going to change enough if we still have higher taxes. So they've got to vote for an extension of those tax cuts that Donald Trump put in and that we've benefited from for, however many years at this point. So they've got a grassroots army. I just encourage you guys to get involved with them in any way that you can and just help out, because it's a message that needs to be heard. It really is one of the most important things, I think, legislation-wise, that's going to be on the table for Republicans and Democrats alike. So go check it out, protectprosperity.com. Go check them out today and see how you can get involved in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just, sending a little email to your congressperson and letting them know, reminding them. And this is Republicans too, right? Because let's face it, everybody has their own self-interest. And so we've got to make sure there's a united front on the tax cuts themselves. Absolutely. Because look, the Democrats, they don't have a clue. We're going to write them off, as Trump did. Again, here, speaking earlier in the Oval Office today, he pointed it out. They don't have a clue.
The Democrats have no clue. You saw that the other night during the speech. 2 young women were slaughtered by illegal aliens. 1 young man has very serious cancer and many other problems. When you look at the people up there, they all had difficulty, very serious difficulty. But when we're talking about 2 young girls, beautiful young girls, Lake and Riley, you know the whole story. That evening was a disaster for the Democrats, in my opinion. And I would mention, and I'd see 2 mothers that were inconsolable as they stood, crying. Their daughters have been absolutely just destroyed, killed, viciously killed. And the young man who loves the police departments, he had cancer and has cancer, very bad cancer. There wasn't from people sitting there, Democrats, there wasn't a hand clap. Nobody stood. They were just stone-faced. These people are sick. There's something wrong with them. There was no standing for anybody. The only thing they liked is when they heard about the death taking place with Ukraine. They were happy about that. They were happy about that. Pocahontas was very happy. She's the one that was clapped. That's why I looked at her. I said, oh, it's Pocahontas. These people are sick. They don't know what's happening in the real world. The Democrats have to get their act together. And if they don't vote, then what you're going to do is you're going to have taxes that are going to go through the roof. You're going to have a very bad time. You're going to have some very bad things happen. And people are going to blame the Democrats.
Thank you, by the way, Spirit-filled. Watching from Knoxville, Tennessee. I love that. I love that. And we've got people from all over in the community. Thank you for your generosity. But that's what I was just talking about, right? So they don't have a clue, and they're not going to vote for an extension of the tax cuts. They don't like tax cuts. They want to take all your money. So we need the Republicans on the same page. So with that in mind, go see my friends at Protect Prosperity. Libs are losing it right now over Tesla. So they just couldn't believe what Donald Trump did yesterday. By the way, Elon's committing more money to Trump organizations. I want to get to that story in just a moment. But first, a shout out to our friends at Balance in Nature, because I'll tell you, I wouldn't be here today without them. I've had a terrible cold, and thanks to these guys, they send me my vitamins, and I actually think it's had a meaningful effect. Vitamin D and vitamin C. My dad's always said, get your vitamin C whenever you have a cold. And I've been taking it with my fruits and gummies. that I take every day, fruits and veggies, I should say. They are gummies, gluten-free, for those of you that care. I have a child who actually has a gluten intolerance, so I notice these things. But listen, it's been great. I take them every day. I feel good. I've only had one cold this year, which is a record for me, considering how many colds have been going through my household. So that's all good news. You can get Balance of Nature as well. Go to their website, look at the testimonials, use my name. You get 35% off with my name, plus free shipping, plus full-on money-back guarantee, no harm, no foul. If you use code word Trish, it helps the show, it helps me, it helps you. So we thank our friends over at Balance of Nature for keeping me in good shape and hopefully keeping you in good shape too.